Hello all, welcome to the Handspin Review Spot YouTube channel. Please hit that subscription button if you want to keep up with what's going on here. It really helps us out. And you can go to our Facebook page via the link in the description box below. Today we're going to do a bit of a comparison video. I've already posted a full review for this. This is the Mark II version of the original Rotablade. And I wanted to do a video detailing just what's changed in the Mark II and what you may or may not like more about it, what the real upsides are to the design changes, and also just my personal thoughts on how much better or worse. Try not to drop it on itself. Sorry about that. Well, luckily enough, I haven't done any damage. So there you go. That gives you an idea of what we're going to look at today. I'm not going to do size comparisons except from between the two of them, because you can go back to the other video and see how this matches up. And also you can't purchase this one anymore, so it won't be that important. So as you can see, if we flip them so that they're, let's do that properly, working in the same direction, you can see that they are, broadly speaking, identical in terms of the overall outline. The length hasn't changed at all, and the overall profile in terms of the silhouette hasn't changed. But one thing which I hope is standing out to you is that the way that this is cut has changed. These had a nice sort of curve that silhouetted or was symmetrical to, or whatever you want to call it, the actual button radius itself. This has gone for a much more sort of kind of a high-tech, kind of futuristic look by having these as straight lines instead, which follow the lines of the outer edges of the body. So it's just gone in a different direction, and I think that's probably a machining characteristic, and that's what we'll discuss first. Effectively, what you have here is one that was cut out on a water jet and then had some more work done on it, and one that's been entirely machined, and obviously that has really changed the characteristics of these. We turn it on our side to continue talking about the changes in profile. What you might be able to see straight away is that the new version, while the silhouette is the same, is much thinner, or rather not much thinner, but thinner certainly, and to a degree that's worth commenting on. There we go. I'll try and get it into the center of the page for you. As you can see, there's a good millimeter difference in terms of the thickness, and then on top of that there's a chamfer around the whole of the Mark II version, which was not there on the original one. Now what we've got here, as you can see, are two tritium versions, both in titanium, and this is thanks in no small part to Alex MK1, who is a good friend of mine in the spinner scene. I hope I just pronounced your name right, bud. And it's down to him that we've got this one here. This is from his personal collection, and it happens to have on it a set of my custom buttons that I make. If anyone's interested in these sorts of buttons for a stubby or these original Rotablades, let me know. Little plug there. And that brings us to the next thing that's changed. So far we have the profile of this interior, the lack of a chamfer, and the fact that it's a little bit thicker. Overall as well, we can say that there's a difference of only a few grams in this. In terms of the overall weights. The Mark II version, the new one, that is 51 grams, and the old one here, due to that extra thickness and the little bit of material that have been left over from this and the lack of a chamfer, is 58 grams. So it's not a huge amount in hand, you don't really notice it. Now, this is one of the things that you really will notice, and that's that the original Rotablade had a larger bearing inside it, and as such, the buttons were also correspondingly different in interior diameter for the lug to go inside that bearing. Now it's running the R188 bearing that you would find in a stubby, so there's a lot more different button options available for this, and indeed Paul is considering, I believe I'm right in saying, doing a different profile button, maybe with a bit more height for this version as well, so maybe that will help it suit people with slightly smaller hands. So what was wrong with the first one that made him decide that he would re-release it completely? Well, I can't speak for his intentions, but these are my assumptions. Effectively, because this is laser cut, you do have, not laser cut, but water jet cut, I think, you do have some imperfections and inconsistencies that go around it. I always thought that added a certain amount of character to the original Rotablade. It wasn't something that I disliked. So in some ways, I'm kind of sad to see that element of it go. I'm also slightly sad to see these curved areas go, because I think it's actually a little bit more attractive in terms of the overall profile, in terms of the look in the original version, than it is in the current one. That's a completely aesthetic sensibility. It's totally subjective, and you may completely disagree with that. In fact, I think probably an awful lot of people will completely disagree with me, and that's probably all for the better, because this is what you can actually get hold of now. But from there, all functional considerations go to the new one. This is a large spinner, and if you've got anything but large hands, you will feel it as quite a large spinner. It eats up a lot of And we're back. Sorry about that. I had to cut there because I had a camera glitch. So let's carry on when we left off. As you know, I like to keep these videos in a single take, but such is life. So, as I was talking about, this eats up quite a bit of space. You can see the little bit of negative space that's left in my palm there. It means if you torque it even slightly to the side, it will catch areas if you have relatively small hands. And that's still the case in terms of the length with the new one, but the fact that it's slightly thinner means that there's just a bit more wiggle room in there, which I think is a big improvement. One of the other really major improvements for me is the chamfer. The truth is that this, if you try and pull back on it in various areas of the body, if that's how you want to spin it, the fact that there's no chamfer here, it just feels uncomfortable. It creates a very swift hot spot, something which I personally don't like. But it wasn't a huge problem with this design, but it was a drawback, particularly if you've got small hands and you're trying to navigate round the sort of points and sharp edges. So overall, I think we're dealing with something which is a really considerable step forward here from Paul and everyone else at Rotablade. They've done a really good job just making small enough changes to not allow this to not feel like the original Rotablade. So it still feels like one and the same, it still feels like part of the family, but it just feels a little bit more usable in a practical sense. And I think most people will like the machined finish much more, and then you can get it in stand blast as well. But what I mean by that is the fact that the whole thing's machined, it has a more uniform and perfect quality about it than the original one does. They'll probably like the fact that it's got this sort of sense of speed with these sort of straight lines. I think overall it's going to go down very, very well, and most people that go for one will probably end up enjoying it more than they would have enjoyed the original one. So, yeah, in general, very, very good changes. There's a couple of small aesthetic things that I prefer about the first one personally, but overall, if I was going to be buying one of these for myself to carry and use on a regular basis, it would be the Mark II all day long. These are also coming in a really, really nice laser etched tin, but that's a separate thing. Some of you guys will remember the early days when these used to come in a plastic box and in a cardboard box with a sticker on top of it. And some of you will possibly remember even further back than that when there wasn't even a box. So there you go, guys. That gives you an idea of just what you're getting if you buy one of these new ones compared to one of the old ones. And if you have one of these in your collection, whether maybe or not you want to get one of these as well. So thank you very much. Sorry about the little cut in there, and I hope that's useful to you. I've certainly enjoyed playing around with these, and thank you again to Alex for the loan of this one. Thank you guys. Catch you in the next video. Bye bye.